Welcome to the online video lecture series on Macbeth. Today we shall discuss the third scene of the fourth act of the play up to line 65. In this scene we find that Malcolm, the eldest son of late King Duncan, who is now residing in England, is approached by Macduff, who tries to convince him to wage war against Macbeth so that he can avenge the assassination of his father and can rid his homeland, his motherland, Scotland, from the tyranny of Macbeth. The stage direction says that the scene is situated in England before the King's Palace. Here the king refers to Edward the Confessor, who was the English king at that point of time. Enter Malcolm and Macduff. On entering the stage, Malcolm says to Macduff, "Let us seek out some desolate shade. Let us find out some desolate spot, some place which is free from other people. And there weep our sad bosoms empty, where we can cry our hearts out, where we can empty our bosoms, empty our hearts of the sad thoughts and feelings that we stored there." And Macduff says that we do not have time to weep, we do not have time to waste in repenting what has been done. Rather, we should be men of action, we should be bold and active enough to avenge what has been done rather than repenting over it. Macduff says, "Let us rather hold fast the mortal sword. It would be better to hold our swords fast than weeping our hearts out, and like good men bestride our downfallen birthdom." Birthdom is a peculiar coinage by Shakespeare, which means the birthplace, the homeland, the motherland where one was born. Macduff says that like good men, like men of action, like bold, courageous men, let us defend, let us protect our downfallen homeland. Let us save our motherland, which is now facing its downfall, its catastrophe. And then he describes the present state of Scotland under the tyrannical rule of Macbeth. He says, Macduff says, "Each new morn, new widows howl, new orphans cry." So every morning people are being slaughtered and numerous women are turning into widows, and their howls, their loud cries are rending the air of Scotland. New orphans cry. Every day children are becoming fatherless. New sorrows strike heaven on the face, that it resounds as if it felt with Scotland and yelled out like syllable of dolour. Dolour is an archaic word for sorrow. Macbeth says that every day, every morning, the sad cries of people of Scotland are rending the air, are rending the heavens. Heavens here imply skies or sky in the singular form. And it seems that even the heavens or the sky can feel the human sorrow, so much so that it reverberates, it resounds the sound of human sorrow and participates in human grief. On hearing that, Malcolm replies in a rather non-committal tone, because Malcolm is not yet sure about the purpose and motive of Macduff. He cannot yet fully believe Macduff, because before the assassination of King Duncan, everyone thought Macbeth was a good and honorable person. But after the assassination, the perspective of people, especially that of Malcolm and Donalbain, changed. And so now they cannot believe anybody whom they knew earlier to be a virtuous and good fellow. So Malcolm says very non-committally, he says, what I believe I will. So if what you are saying is true, I must lament that. I must express my sorrow over that, if it is true. What no believe and what I can redress, as I shall find the time to friend, I will. So Malcolm says that if I find time to redress these wrongs, if I can have enough scope, enough opportunity to rectify this situation of my homeland, I might try to do so. When you have spoke, it may be so perchance. As you were telling me, the situation may in reality be like that. But there is a tone of doubt in Malcolm's answer. Malcolm says that it may be so perchance. It may perhaps be so, what you are telling me. But he doesn't sound very much convinced, because he cannot yet fully believe Macduff from his previous experience of what Macbeth did to his father. Then he says, Malcolm continues with his speech. This tyrant, whose sole name blisters our tongues, was once thought honest. So this tyrant, that is Macbeth, whose very name sizzles, whose very name burns our tongues because we despise him so much, was once thought honest. This Macbeth was also once thought to be an honest and honorable, a virtuous man. You have loved him well, and all of you, all of the courtiers and thanes, loved him, admired him previously. He hath not touched you yet. And another very significant thing is that however tyrannical Macbeth may be to his countrymen, he has not yet touched you. He has not yet done any harm to you in particular. Then Malcolm says, I am young. Here young means inexperienced, who is not as shrewd as the seasoned politicians. So he says, I am young, I am inexperienced, I am too young to understand the intricacies of diplomacy and politics. But something you may deserve of him through me. But I can understand that you can gain something, you can gain some favor from Macbeth by offering me to him, by handing me over to him. And wisdom to offer up a weak, poor, innocent lamb to appease an angry god. And it is our general wisdom, it is our general farsightedness which tells us that if we want to appease, if we want to please an angry god, we must offer the blood of an innocent lamb to him. So that may be the case with me as well. Perhaps you came here to dupe me, to bamboozle me and offer me in the hands of Macbeth, just in order to please him and gain some favor from him. Now Macduff does not have any solid argument against this kind of an accusation. He can simply say, I am not treacherous. Because Macduff is quite moved by the note of cynicism, by the note of suspicion in Malcolm's speech. He can simply say that I am not treacherous, I am not a duplicitous fellow. Malcolm says, but Macbeth is. You may not be treacherous, you may not be a false person, but Macbeth definitely is. A good and virtuous nature may recoil in an imperial church, and even if you are a good, virtuous and honest fellow, that very nature may change, that very nature may turn into something vicious and duplicitous under a royal diktat, under the order from a superior authority like the king himself. But I shall crave your pardon. That which you are, my thoughts cannot transpose. But I must beg your pardon, because you may indeed be an honorable and virtuous man, and what you are is stands. What you are cannot be changed just because I think otherwise. My thoughts, my own perceptions about you cannot change the real nature of you. You will remain as virtuous and as honest as you indeed are, irrespective of my impressions about you. That is what he means to say. But he goes on with his cynical note. He says, angels are bright still, though the brightest fell. Here he refers to the biblical incident of the rebellion of Lucifer, who was the brightest of all angels against God, and because of that rebellion he was expelled from heaven into hell, where he took the name of Satan. And he says that though the brightest of the angels fell, though the brightest of the angels turned into a demon, a devil, who were angels, who were virtuous angels, are still so. They are still bright, pious souls. Though all things foul would wear the brows of grace, yet grace must still look so. And though something which is foul, something which is vicious, something which is harmful, may put up an appearance of virtue or grace, of goodness, but what is in itself graceful, what is in itself beautiful and harmless, will still look so. So it would be impossible for ordinary human beings to distinguish what is foul and what is fair just from their respective physical appearances. It would be impossible for me to know whether you, Macduff, are indeed a virtuous person, and there would not be any possible harm from you just because you are saying so, or just because you appear to be virtuous. Because Macbeth, who has now become a tyrant, was also once thought to be a virtuous person, was also thought to be honorable and honest by all of us. So I cannot distinguish between goodness and badness just from the words of one's mouth, or just on basis of one's physical appearance. So do not take any special offense of my words. If you are virtuous, you will remain virtuous irrespective of my impression about you. Then Macduff sounds quite hopeless. He says, I have lost my hopes. I do not have any hope left, because I cannot possibly convince you of my goodness, of my innocence. Malcolm replies, perchance even there where I did find my doubts, but perhaps I have a reasonable ground for my suspicion, even in your very purpose, even in your very even in the hopes that you are talking about. Then he explains why he thinks so. He says, why in that rawness? Here, rawness is a peculiar usage by Shakespeare to denote haste. Why in that rawness left you wife and child, those precious motives, those strong knots of love, without leave-taking? Now, as yet, neither Macduff nor Malcolm is aware of the fact that Lady Macduff and her children have been brutally slaughtered by the murderers sent by Macbeth. So, Malcolm says that I have reasons to suspect even your motives, even your hopes, because I think it quite unusual for you to come over to England in such a haste without taking leave from your wife and your children, who are the strongest bonds of familial love. I pray you, I implore you, I earnestly request you, let not my jealousies be your dishonors. Here, jealousies do not actually mean, the word jealousy here does not mean envy as such. Here, jealousy means suspicion or doubt. Let not my jealousies, let not my suspicions be your dishonors. Just because I am suspicious about your motives, let it not dishonor you, let it not show any disrespect to you. But mine own safeties. So my suspicions, my doubts are only for my own safety. These are not targeted to disrespect you in any way. You may be rightly just, whatever I shall think. So he repeats what he said just a few lines earlier. He says that you can still be just, right, virtuous and honest, irrespective of what I think about you. When Macduff, who is now completely hopeless, who has lost all his hopes of convincing Macduff to avenge the death of his father, now thinks that for his motherland Scotland there is no other alternative than to endure the tyranny of Macbeth, because who could avenge Macbeth, who could dethrone Macbeth, is quite reluctant to believe in his words, believe in his purpose, his motive. So the land, so his homeland, his motherland Scotland, is now left with no other alternative. So Macduff says, bleed, bleed, poor country, great tyranny, lay thou thy bases sure, for goodness dare not check thee. So the first line is addressed apostrophically to the poor country, Scotland. And Macduff means to say that you have no other alternative than to bleed every day as you are bleeding now. And then the second apostrophic address is directed to Macbeth, whom Macduff refers to as great tyranny in the abstract form rather than in the concrete form, which would be the tyrant, great tyrant, lay thou thy bases sure, but he chooses to say great tyranny because the tyranny of Macbeth is so vast, so immense and so deep-seated that Macduff deems it proper to call it tyranny rather than a tyrant. Great tyranny, lay thou thy bases sure. Great tyranny, you can lay the foundation, lay the basis of your rule stronger than ever. For goodness dare not check thee, because one who is good, one who is virtuous, does not have the adequate courage to restrain you, to check you. Wear thou thy wrongs. You wear the dignity, wear the honor that you have craved, that you have earned through your wrongdoings, through your improper activities. The title is afferred. Your title, your attainment of kingship is bolstered by your wrongdoings, and there is no one who can challenge it, who can question, or who can take it back from you. Fare thee well, Lord. Now this is obviously addressed to Malcolm. Now Macduff is completely hopeless and wants to take leave from Malcolm because he knows that there is no use in spending more time here. Fare thee well, Lord. I would not be the villain that thou thinkest, for the whole space that's in the tyrant's grasp, and the rich east to boot. And finally he says that I shall never be that kind of a villain, that kind of a vicious fellow that you think, even in exchange of the entire territory, the entire land that is now being ruled by the tyrant, and nor even for the addition of the rich east, the eastern part of the world, which was supposed to be very rich in wealth and minerals and natural resources. He says that not even in exchange of the eastern countries of the world, not even in exchange of the land, the nation which is under the tyrant's rule now, I shall never be that kind of a villain that you were thinking about. Then Malcolm tries to pacify his rage, pacify his mental turbulence by saying, be not offended, do not take any particular umbrage at my words. I speak not as in absolute fear of you. What I have just spoken was not out of absolute fear of you in particular. I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. It weeps, it bleeds, and each new day a gash is added to her wounds. I am convinced about your description of my motherland. I can understand very well that each day the condition of my motherland is deteriorating, is going from bad to worse, and each new day a new wound is being added to her existing wounds. Gash is an archaic word for wound or a cut. I think withal there would be hands uplifted in my right, and even if I go to invade my homeland, if I wage a war against Macbeth to reclaim my due rights, I am sure that there will be supporters who would favor me, who would join my troops. And here from gracious England have I offer of goodly thousands, and even the English king, under whose aegis I have taken refuge, has promised me to supply me with thousands of soldiers. But for all these, when I shall tread upon the tyrant's head, or wear it on my sword, yet my poor country shall have more vices than it had before, more suffer and more sundry ways than ever, by him that shall succeed. But now he tries to test Macduff's solidarity, Macduff's earnestness of purpose by telling some false demerits about him, by telling about his own villainous nature, which is of course false, but he tells Macduff of his own villainous nature just to test how much earnest Macduff really is to invite him to take revenge on Macbeth and to reclaim his due honor as the future ruler of the country. So he says that I know that if I go to Scotland to dethrone Macbeth, there will be supporters in favor of me inside the land, inside the country, and I will have supplies of soldiers from England as well. But will that be wise? Do you think that will be better for your motherland Scotland? Because even if I succeed in dethroning and killing Macbeth, yet I think that my poor country, that my poor motherland will have more vices than it had under the tyrannical rule of Macbeth. And it will suffer more, suffer in more ways, more ways than it experienced under the rule of Macbeth. By him that shall succeed. Here succeed means to come after, to inherit. Now, if I succeed Macbeth, if I inherit Macbeth as the future ruler of Scotland, then my poor country is likely to suffer even more than what it experienced under Macbeth's rule. Then Macduff, in a very bewildered manner, asks, what should he be? He means to say, who could be that person who would succeed Macbeth and be more tyrannical, more vicious than even him? Because Macduff cannot think that Malcolm is self-criminalizing him. Malcolm is telling such things about himself. So Macduff asks in a bewildered tone, what should he be? What kind of a person would the successor of Macbeth be? Then Malcolm replies, it is myself I mean. I mean that I myself who would be succeeding Macbeth as the next ruler of the land, in whom I know all the particulars of vice so grafted that when they shall be opened, black Macbeth will seem as pure as snow, and the poor state esteem him as a lamb, being compared with my confineless harms. Now, Malcolm self-criminalizes himself. He says that I am more vicious, more villainous than Macbeth, and if you compare Macbeth with me, you will think he is as innocent and as virtuous as a lamb. He says, it is myself I mean I myself, in whom I know all the particulars of vice so grafted, and I know my very nature, I know how much vicious I am. Different kinds of vice are so deeply rooted, so deeply embossed in my character, that even the black Macbeth, even Macbeth whom you are now perceiving to be black with villainy, black with vice, will appear as pure as snow. He will, after you experience my villainy, you are likely to consider Macbeth to be as white as snow, as pure as snow. And the poor state esteem him as a lamb, and all the countrymen will regard Macbeth as a harmless lamb when they would compare his rule, his reign, with that of mine, being compared with my confineless harms. My harms, my villainies are confineless, they are unbounded. They do not have any bounds, they do not have any limits. Then Macduff, who is not prepared to believe in what Malcolm says, replies, not in the legions of horrid hell can come a devil more damned in evils to top Macbeth. And Macduff says that not even among the fallen angels, not even among the devils who are the residents of hell, you can find a suitable one who would excel Macbeth in villainy. Not in the legions of horrid hell, not even in the armies of hell, you can find a devil more damned, more vicious in evils to top Macbeth, who can excel Macbeth in villainy in vices. Then Malcolm tells more convincingly about his villainous nature. He actually is not villainous, but he tells all these things just to test how much honest Macduff is in his purpose. Malcolm says, I grant him bloody, luxurious, avaricious, false, deceitful, sudden, malicious, smacking of every sin that has a name. Malcolm says that yes, I acknowledge that Macbeth has all the sins, all the vices which have a name in the human language. He is luxurious. Here, luxurious means who is very much sensual in nature, avaricious, greedy, false, deceitful. He is very duplicitous in nature. He is very deceitful. He is full of deceiving tactics. Sudden, malicious. He is very abrupt. Macbeth does not take much time in executing his plans. He is very sudden. He is very abrupt. He is malicious. He harbors strong malice in his heart. Smacking of every sin. He is full of every sin that has a name in the human language. But there is no bottom, none, in my voluptuousness. But my voluptuousness, my sensuality does not have any end. It does not have a bottom. It is limitless. Your wives, your daughters, your matrons, and your maids could not fill up the cistern of my lust. I am so lustful, I am so voluptuous that not even all the women from your relatives, from your families would be able to satiate my lustful thirst. And my desire, all continent impediments would overwear that did oppose my will. Better Macbeth than such an one to reign. And he says that anyone or anything that will try to hinder, that will try to impede my will, that will come in the form of an impediment in front of my will, my wish, will be completely abolished, will be completely destroyed. So it is better for Scotland that it should suffer under the reign of Macbeth than to suffer under the rule of such a tyrannical and vicious person as I am. So let us stop here for the time being, and in our next lecture we shall continue from Macduff's address. Thank you.